The rebel soldiers who threatened to overthrow the Russian government have returned to their bases after President Putin agreed not to prosecute them. America says profound questions have been raised about who's in charge in Moscow and who's calling the shots in its invasion of Ukraine.
We haven't seen the last act yet, but we can say this. First of all, what we've seen is extraordinary, and I think you've seen cracks emerge that weren't there before.
Also tonight, a technical fault stops 999 calls from being connected to the emergency services. England's women lose some early wickets after bowling out the Australians at Trent Bridge, and the crowds are getting ready for Elton and his last UK show on the last night at Glastonbury.
This is ITV News with Geraint, Vincent.
Good evening. The government of Vladimir Putin is trying to recover some authority tonight after a weekend in which it has been challenged as never before. An army of mercenaries, which has been doing much of Russia's fighting in its war on Ukraine, mutinied and began a march on Moscow. President Putin condemned them as traitors, but then did a deal with the mercenaries' leader to get him to call off the rebellion. America's top diplomat has said the revolt has exposed the cracks in Putin's regime. Here's our Europe editor, James Mates.
The morning after Putin's longest day. Before dawn breaks, the mercenary soldiers of the Wagner Group pull out of the southern city of Rostov, release their grip on Putin's war-fighting headquarters here, and head back towards the Ukraine battlefields. But watch the reaction of ordinary people to this mutiny. The moment the dictator's grip was loosened, they were on the streets cheering the rebels. It is clear that dissatisfaction runs deep here. Vladimir Putin had promised in a TV address the mutiny would be crushed in the event he was forced to negotiate. Despite the release of behind-the-scenes footage intended to show him taking charge, he settled for a messy compromise, not a decisive show of strength. Russians will have noticed, and so has the rest of the world.
What's so striking about it is it's internal. The fact that you have from within someone directly questioning Putin's authority, directly questioning the premises that upon which he launched this aggression against Ukraine. That in and of itself is something very, very powerful. It adds cracks. Where those go, when they get there, too soon to say.
The chief mutineer, Yevgeny Prigozhin, left Rostov late last night en route to exile in Belarus. His future may be precarious. In the old saying, when you strike at a king, you must kill him. Recruitment posters for his Wagner Group are already being pulled down in Moscow. But if he isn't seen to pay a price personally, Putin will appear weaker still to a Russian elite who have smelt blood.
I think it's damaged Putin very badly. We'll see if it's actually caused serious damage to the morale of the Russian army in Ukraine. And I think it's put in question at least political cohesion amongst the elite in Russia. So I think this is one act in a drama that we're going to see continuing to unfold over the coming weeks and months.
What is clear now is that 24 hours of Russians fighting Russians, of fuel supplies destroyed and helicopters shot down, can only have helped Ukraine. They see an enemy in disarray at home, if not yet on the battlefield, which can only add to their belief that a victory can be won. James Mates, ITV News.
Well, our correspondent Emma Murphy is in Kiev. Emma, what does the government there make of the uncertainty created by what's happened this weekend?
Well, President Zelensky has been very clear in statements he's made in the last 24 hours that he who proceeds down a path of evil will find evil rested upon him. And, that kind of talk is very good for morale, for soldiers, it's good for the public to hear. But actually, when it comes to the reality on the battlefield, as James was referencing there, it's quite a different situation. They did make those gains yesterday when all this chaos was going on in Russia, but they were gains that they may or may not have made anyway, just small pushes forward. And today there have been over 60 different attacks at various parts of this country. So things are not very different here. Things are not different for people who are getting on with their lives. Things are not different for those soldiers who are living and dying on the battlefield. There was such hope yesterday that perhaps things might change significantly, but that has not come to pass. One of the things here, though, that is being asked, it's the same question that's being asked all over the world, is what was this all about? Was this genuinely a big push to take Putin down, or was this something that maybe we will never know until much further down the line? Was this some kind of orchestrated, pre-planned, internal Russian strategy to distract? It's not something we'll know. Anybody who says that they do know the answers to this at the moment is just not speaking from a position of authority. Maybe one day we will.
OK, Emma Murphy in Ukraine. Many thanks. An investigation has begun into what caused a failure of the national 999 phone system. It meant callers were unable to connect for about an hour. A backup system is now being used, although BT said some residual issues remain. Well, Martha Fairley is outside the HQ of the London Ambulance Service. So, Martha, any idea what caused this problem?
Well, the problem, which was first reported at around 8:30 this morning, was originally described as a system failure. An investigation is still ongoing into exactly what went wrong, but we understand that no third party was involved, and nor was it connected to today's hot weather. 999 calls were effectively just not connecting to the emergency services. Callers were advised instead to dial 111 for a medical emergency or to call 101 for fire and rescue, Coast Guard and police services. Calls across the UK were affected for about an hour until BT, which runs the nationwide 999 system, transferred over to a backup platform, which is still in operation. 999 calls are now going through, but call handling times may be longer than usual. It's taking around 30 seconds for some calls to be answered. The backup system is also not as good at pinpointing the exact location of where a call's being made, so callers are being advised to have their address and location ready. But on a hot summer day where emergency services have been in very high demand, this has been a very unwelcome additional pressure on the emergency system. OK, Martha, many thanks. A 15-year-old girl has died after being pulled from the sea off Cleethorpes. A search and rescue mission was launched after the girl and a boy, who's also 15, were reported missing at around lunchtime yesterday. They were both airlifted to hospital, where the girl later died. The boy has since been discharged. Elsewhere, a man has died after a hot air balloon deflated and fell to the ground in Worcestershire. Emergency services were called to a field in Ombersley, where the man was pronounced dead by paramedics. And it has been revealed that the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, has been diagnosed with breast cancer. A spokesman for the Duchess said she was given the news at a recent routine mammogram screening. They went on to add that she has undergone a successful surgery. Rishi Sunak has conceded it will take time to bring down NHS waiting times in England. There are currently a record 4.7 million people on a waiting list. This week, the Prime Minister will announce what he says will be the largest expansion of training in the history of the service. But as Lewis Warner explains, it could take some years before it delivers results.
Hi everyone, how are you? It's a key pledge of his premiership. Judge me, says Rishi Sunak, on my ability to cut NHS waiting times. But at hospitals across the country, that task is troubling, made tougher by the high number of job vacancies that just can't be filled.
But then you did the training.
We did the training.
Right.
The NHS has now come up with a plan, backed by government, to train more doctors and nurses in the largest expansion of its workforce in its 75-year history. But the government admits it will take time before the benefits begin, despite the pressure being felt right now.
It will take time for the overall waiting list to come down, because as we've recovered from COVID and people have come back, it was always going to take time. But what I can tell you is that because of our record investment today, because of the plans that we've got in place, we are seeing that waiting lists are coming down.
There are currently more than 100,000 vacancies in the NHS in England, representing 8% of all jobs. And as it takes 3 years to train a nurse and 7 years to train a doctor, it's unclear how soon it would help reduce the record 7.4 million people in England waiting for treatment. And it's hampered too by ongoing industrial action. The longest ever walkout by junior doctors is scheduled over 5 days next month.
This workforce plan is just one part of the jigsaw. It's absolutely essential that we seek to resolve ongoing industrial disputes in the immediate and short term. And we would really urge government and the unions to come to the table to explore that.
Labour's similar plan to properly staff the health service was announced last year, to be paid for by tightening up tax rules. It says the government is now following suit after much delay.
The government appears to have decided that after rubbishing that idea for 9 months, that is in fact a good idea. We're very pleased with that. We'd like to see the detail of that. We only wish that they'd come to their senses earlier. If they'd done this 10 years ago, we wouldn't be facing huge recruitment and retention problems.
The details that make up this plan will be announced next week, but its impact won't be felt anytime soon. Lewis Warner, ITV News.
In cricket, and England's women have been trying to get the better of Australia in the Ashes test at Trent Bridge. Like the men's test at Edgbaston earlier this week, fortunes have swung back and forth on a dramatic penultimate day. Chris Scudder has been watching the action.
A fight back from England's bowlers, and with it a chance to win the Ashes test. The first wicket cost nearly 100 runs, but then the stumps were clattered time and again. Lauren Filer's 2 quick strikes set the tone. Then the spin of Sophie Eccleston took over. The key breakthrough was Beth Mooney, out for 85. Kate Cross chipped in as well as England ripped through the middle order. With the day belonged to the world's #1 ranked bowler, Eccleston. 5 wickets in the innings and 10 in the match, the best Ashes haul for 20 years. 268 England's target for victory, but after a bright start they lost first innings double centurion Tammy Beaumont for 22. Then trouble for England. 4 more wickets followed as the match swung again towards Australia. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
Tennis, and the Queen's Club has crowned a new champion. Carlos Alcaraz beat the Australian Alex de Minaur in straight sets to claim his first ever title on grass. The win means the 20-year-old Spaniard regains his world #1 ranking from Novak Djokovic, and he'll also be the top seed for Wimbledon, which starts a week tomorrow. Finally, later this evening, Sir Elton John will take to the Pyramid stage at the Glastonbury Festival for what he has said will be his final performance in the UK. His fans, many of them decked out in sparkly outfits in tribute to the star, have been out early to stake a place. His show will bring the curtain down on the festival for another year, and there are rumours Sir Elton could be joined by several surprise guests. Our entertainment reporter Rishi Davda is there and sent us this report.
This year's Glastonbury Festival has been special for a number of reasons. Firstly, the weather. Apart from the odd spot of rain, it has been glorious sunshine, which unsurprisingly has put people in a pretty good mood. But Glastonbury has also been an emotional one. It started on Friday when Foo Fighters turned up for a surprise performance, at the end of which they paid tribute to late drummer Taylor Hawkins, who passed away last year. The crowd were also visibly moved during Lewis Capaldi's set yesterday. Lewis has just taken a break to focus on his mental and physical well-being after a Tourette's diagnosis. Yesterday was his first performance back, and on stage he struggled with his tics and began to lose his voice. He apologised throughout, but the crowd stuck with him right to the end. He said he'll be taking an even longer break this time. And tonight's headliner will be emotional too. Sir Elton John, at the age of 76, performing for the last time on UK soil. He has promised 4 guest performers during this special performance, and social media has been circling plenty of names about who they could be, including Taron Egerton, who of course played Sir Elton in the 2019 biopic, potentially Britney Spears and Dua Lipa too. There's no better place to bid farewell than in front of 200,000 people here at Worthy Farm. Sir Elton is said to be feeling a little bit anxious ahead of what's bound to be one of his most memorable music moments.
Rishi Davda at Glastonbury, lucky man. That is it for now. I'm back at 10. Until then, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
The warm weather continues. So why not squeeze the most out of the day? Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.
Good evening to you. It's been a hot and humid day out there, one of the hottest days of the year so far, as temperatures have peaked in excess of 30 degrees in places. The muggy, humid air gradually giving way as we approach the new week. And in the meantime, we keep a warning out for some thundery downpours for the next few hours. These easing, and then a perfect and fine summer's evening, warm with some late sunshine before dusk, if quite breezy from the west, and fresher air working its way in from those western locations as the night unfolds. Not quite as humid or as uncomfortable for sleeping as the night goes on. Having said that, staying mild, not much below 14 or 15 degrees. And into a new day, warm from the word go, with stunning sunshine to greet us into a new week. A few hit-and-miss showers and longer downpours developing across northern Britain and Northern Ireland, some giving rumbles of thunder, drier in the south. A little more cloud compared to today and much fresher. Highs of 25 or 26 degrees.
Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.